Can we go ahead with the housekeeping, please?
Thank you for participating in today's meeting. If attending in person, please do not connect to Zoom or teleconference while in the room, and please silence all devices. If translation is provided, click on the globe at the bottom of your screen to select either English or Spanish. Public comment will be taken after each item. If you're in the auditorium and wish to comment, please use the iPads located in the lobby or complete a blue speaker card as available. If you need assistance, please find a South Coast AQMD employee. Speakers may be limited to a total of 3 minutes or less for all agenda items. Times may be shortened to ensure all speakers can be heard. A countdown timer will be displayed on the screen for each public comment. More time will be allotted for Spanish translation that is not simultaneous. For questions or issues on making a public comment, please call the public advisor at 909-396-3247. That's 909-396-3247. Please adhere to the speaker time limit and treat others with courtesy, civility, and respect. Failure to do so can result in your mic being muted or you being removed from the meeting. Be aware that this meeting is being recorded. By participating, you authorize recording of audio and visual content presented during the live event and consent to subsequent use of the recording in the public domain by South Coast AQMD.
I'd like to call to order the Stationary Source Committee and ask for a roll call, please.
Councilmember Cacchiotti?
Here.
Senator Delgado? Absent. Supervisor Mitchell? Absent. Board Member Padilla Campos? Here. Mayor, sorry. Supervisor Hagman?
Here.
And Chair McKellen?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Going to our first item, select a third-party contractor to administer the Go Zero pilot program presented by Heather Farr. Heather.
Good morning, Committee Chair McKellen, members of the committee. I'm here to present our recommendation for the third-party minister for the Go Zero incentive program. Next slide, please. Just by way of background, the Air Quality Management Plan that was adopted by the board in December strives for zero emission standards wherever feasible. We are working on ongoing rule development for zero emission building appliances. One of the hurdles to that is the upfront costs. So we are developing a Go Zero pilot incentive program to really help incentivize the purchase of those zero emission appliances. This will help early adoption to transition to those technologies. We're also going to try to get as much funding as possible into those overburdened communities. And we're going to use this as like a pilot program. So we're going to take lessons learned and use those lessons for the future phases of the program. Next slide, please. So the Go Zero incentive program is designed with 5 sub-projects. 3 of those are rebates for single-family, multi-family, and small business rebates. We also have 2 other elements. One is for outreach and contract assistance to really get the word out and to help people apply and stack other incentives, as well as a training piece. We do need to get more contractors that are more familiar with this newer technology that can install them. We're starting with a $21 million fund, and we're going to try to focus 75% of that into our overburdened communities. Next slide, please. So we did release a proposal after the August board approved the contract that approved us to release a request for proposal. We did get 7 bidders for some or all of those sub-projects. We had a panel review that included internal staff from different departments, as well as somebody from the California Air Resources Board. And we did some reach out and some background checks, and we are ready to make the recommendations. Next slide. We got a good diversity of bidders, including nonprofits and local businesses, as well as small businesses and some minority and women-led businesses. We also had some different bidders that had very specific experience in some of our local communities. Next slide, please. So we are recommending to break up the 5 sub-projects between 4 different groups: EGIA, who we worked with before, Wilden Energy Solutions, the Energy Coalition, and Community Connections, LLC. On the next slide, This shows some of the reasoning behind the different selections. EGIA, we actually worked with our furnace rebate program. It was a very successful program. They were really the top bidders, mostly because they had very low administration costs. That's what really set them apart. When it came to Wilden Energy Solutions, they had very good technical expertise, especially for those multifamily and small businesses. The Energy Coalition was a top score when it came to the relevant outreach and helping with application assistance. And Community Connections had really notable experience within the LA County and Orange County region. Next slide, please. So for the next steps, we will go to the January board to seek approval of our recommended contractors. Then we anticipate executing contracts, working kind of on the details of the program, how the outreach is going to be conducted, and then launch the program. And then we would like to do run the program for a year or when those funds are exhausted, and then really do a check-in and report back to this committee on kind of the lessons learned and the successes. Next slide. That's it. Any questions?
Could you go back to slide 7, please? On slide 7, it says the Community Connection LLC has no expertise for subproject 4. Yet in the report, it says you're going to have them give them 20% of the monies for project 5. Could you explain that?
Sorry if we had this sub-project labeled wrong. That is for the outreach component. So 20% of the outreach component for LA and Orange counties.
Yeah, but that's for project 5.
Yeah, I think we do have a typo on that slide.
Oh, they have expertise in project 5, sub-project 5?
Yes, the outreach component.
Okay, I was just wondering why you split up 80% between the other one and Energy Coalition and the Community Connection. Is there any reason for that?
We based that partially on population because there was such a big population base in LA and Orange County. So we wanted to have, and they had that expertise in that area. So we wanted to provide some kind of additional outreach in those areas.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? Go ahead.
Thank you. I was just wondering, what were you looking for in these proposals? Something that really stood out for you?
We had a series of things that we evaluated, including technical basis. We did look at cost, how much it was going to cost to implement the program, past experience, implementing similar programs, and the successes they had with that.
And then for evaluation, I'm just concerned also knowledge of, all locations where we really want them to focus on, like sort of the hardest to reach populations and that sort of stuff. Was that something you all looked into?
We did look at the kind of connections the different groups that we looked at had within the communities.
And you mentioned that in a year you'll be evaluating the program or these groups and sort of their performance. So I assume there's some sort of evaluation or outcomes that you'll be evaluating them on.
So we're looking at this as a pilot phase, as I said, and we want to do future phases of this program. So we want to look at things like, yes, how well it was implemented, but also the rebate amounts. Were they too high? Did they go too quickly? Maybe they were too low. We weren't able to get the rebates out there. So those are the kind of things that we can kind of make adjustments to the program as we move forward.
And as a pilot, is it just a year pilot or
until the funding is exhausted?
Could we evaluate them sooner and not wait till the end? Just to maybe mid-year, just to see how things are going and see if there's any pivots or tweaks we have to do? Just think, should wait till the end. Okay, just a suggestion. And then how do we ensure that contractors will pass all the incentive funds to the end users and won't increase their prices?
Yeah, we've thought about that. We are going to have a reporting part of this so that we will be able to track how much these installations cost. And that's something that we could make as something that's publicly available. So if you yourself have to install a water heater, it will have a list of what it would typically cost. So that could help, understand what those costs should be.
Can we maybe also see about that in the mid-year when we're doing evaluations, just to see how that's going?
Yeah, great suggestion. Thank you.
That's it. Thank you.
Other comments or questions? If the pilot program is successful, where are the additional funds going to come from for this program?
So this program is being funded by the mitigation fees that we collected under 1111 and 1121, and we still have additional fees that the 21 million won't exhaust that fund.
So how much your funding is going to be available, I guess?
So the amount of funding that will be available will actually be dependent upon the board. We'll actually, if we look at the amount of mitigation funds, some of those funds are hopefully going to be used on some of the ocean-going vessel projects that we have coming up. And we do have some additional funds that would be available to expand from the 20 million up higher. I think in the past I've said 100 million. But again, I think what we have to do is look at the overall success and see how we move forward. And then I think one of the things we also want to be able to do is to look at the amount of funding that's available through other parties and other groups. As we've talked about, we want to explore the opportunities for stacking these kind of incentives, rebates. So getting an understanding of that, and I understand from the team that there's already a website that does that. I don't know if Heather and or Mike are familiar with that. And it's on the handout, apparently. If you do the QR code, it'll provide you with website information and a page with all that information.
Very good. Any others? I recognize that Chair Delgado has joined us.
Good morning. Sorry, I'm late, board members.
Good morning. Okay, if there's no other comment, is there any public comment on this item? I see several hands raised online, but I'm just wondering, is it on this item? If so, we'll ask for...
Yes, Chair. We can go ahead and, if you prefer, staff can read the commenters' names as we move through.
We can do it from up here.
Okay.
iPad Luis Porras. Luis?
Yes, good morning. Excuse me, good morning. This is item number 7, correct?
No, this is item number 1.
Okay, I'll lower my hand. I'm waiting for item 7.
And Justin, Walt. We're getting people. Brian Schmidt.
Yes, thank you. Good morning, Brian Schmidt from Menlo Spark. We're an environmental organization based in San Francisco Bay Area. And I wanted to mention that our organization recently funded a complete 100% retrofit of the first multifamily housing in San Mateo County here up in the Bay Area, which was 100% affordable housing. Silicon Valley Clean Energy in Santa Clara County is also funding multifamily electrification retrofits. And Peninsula Clean Energy, I understand, will likely have a case study out soon on their single-family retrofits. So the information I wanted to pass on is there's case studies, including my own organization's case studies, that will be available and can help these contractors so they don't have to rely solely on their own experience. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next and last is Redlands Chamber.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Hi, I'm Evan Sanford, Executive Director of the Redlands Chamber of Commerce, and it's an honor to represent our nearly 500 business members, representing thousands of owners, employees, and customers throughout our community. And while we support efforts to improve air quality, these amendments raise significant concerns that need immediate attention.
Excuse me, are you commenting on
yes.
item 2?
Yeah.
Oh, that'll be next. We're talking
sorry.
item 1.
Thank you very much.
Very good. I see no other hands raised. And there's nobody in-house, so we'll bring it back to the committee for a motion.
Second, with just one more question, Larry.
Go ahead.
Of Heather or Wayne, of the 20 plus million that's available, or Michael, approximately how many residents? I know 75% is for overburdened communities, disadvantaged communities, 25% for the rest. Approximately how many consumers, ballpark, do you think that would help till we run out?
Just to give an upper level, we're talking thousands of homes that would be able to be transitioned.
I'm just trying to figure, so each one, how much, if I'm the typical person is going to participate in the program, on a changeover, I've got to hire somebody, the equipment, the electrician or plumber, whoever it is, what's each person basically going to spend? Because I'm trying to figure out in my head, Larry, how many people, each individual project changes a little bit, but then you multiply that number and then you figure out. So I'm just going to get a range.
Well, I think some of those cost issues we'll get into in the next item.
We will. We're just curious on this one. So as we get.
It really depends, Vice Chair, on how those funds are utilized, whether it's multifamily or single family. And I know both Heather and Mike are looking at those numbers to try to give you a range, I believe.
Right. So for example, with the 9 million we have designated for the single family homes, giving the rebate at 1,500, we then allow 6,000 homes to be transitioned.
The multifamily is a little bit more complicated because it depends on the number of units. So there is a different kind of system. So that could be up to 2,500 or 17 properties if it's a really large property. That one's it's a little different the way we're proposing to send that money out.
And the reason I ask is because some of the letters in my 34 cities, Laverne sent in a letter, and other cities have spoke to other mayors and council members. They were just concerned that as we have a good incentive program, they focused on that, but again, it's a small percentage of the 17 million in our district. So I just want to get a bigger picture of this part, and then as we expand it, how that would go. That's good for now. Thanks. And then one more, Larry. And I didn't get haven't had a chance to do this yet, but I remember a couple of times ago I was mentioning regarding partners, as Wayne talked about stacking. I mentioned the California, the Clean Power Alliance, Edison, et cetera. How are we doing on that, working together, coordinating those efforts? What's the status of that right now?
Right now, there are lots of funds that are out there that are available, and we are, designing the program that they will be stackable. So those state programs will be able to stack on top of the rebates that we're going to have. So we are working closely with them.
And they'll be listed simply for everybody to see when they, like a flyer or something like that?
Yeah, that QR code shows all the different programs that exist.
Got them in there?
And part of our application assistance will be to help those homeowners reach out and apply to those other programs as well.
Kind of walk through it if you have events, they can show them.
That's the idea.
Perfect. Great. Thank you, Larry.
Thank you.
One clarification. Wayne, do I need to put in the motion to request the 6-month evaluation, or is that sort of voluntary? What do you advise?
We will do it. If you want to include it in your motion, that's fine, but we'll do it.
I'm just thinking, just when you write contracts with the vendors, that they are aware that they will need to meet these evaluations at certain points. And I think if we don't put in this motion, that it's in their contract, so they're aware that these are the expectations.
Yeah, with the contracts, we'll be monitoring them as the program kind of goes along. So we ourselves will have that accountability in about 6 months to report back.
Okay. So, we won't put in the motion. Just wanted to get that clarification. Thank you.
And of course, with rebates, the customer, if you will, has to put the money up front before they get the rebate, which can be a problem for some lower income people. I'd like to recognize that Supervisor Mitchell has joined us. Supervisor, thank you for being here.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And just FYI, we do have members of the public here who, just so you know.
How many want to speak?
3, not on this item. They've not raised their hands, but I just wanted you to know that we did have public here at the Hall of Administration. We have 3 people.
Okay, thank you very much.
Welcome.
Okay, any other comments? If not, I need a motion.
I seconded it.
Oh, we did?
Yeah.
We have motion and a second. Could we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Caccione?
Yes.
Senator Delgado?
Yes.
Supervisor Mitchell?
Aye.
Supervisor Hagman? Board Member Padilla-Campos?
Yes.
And Chair McCallum?
Yes.
Motion passes, 6 ayes.
Thank you very much. Now we'll go on to item 2, update on proposed amended rule 1111. But I just want to say, for those online who wish to comment, would you please raise your hand at the end of the presentation? I'm going to close the queue on the online public comment. So we have a presentation by Heather.
Okay. Good morning. My next presentation will be on our proposed amendments to our Rule 1111, which is our zero emissions, which is our space heating regulation, and 1121, which is for water heating. Next slide, please. Just by way of background, these rules were adopted in 1978. They regulate NOx emissions from natural gas, residential, space, and water heating. The regulation is really through the supply chain, so this is enforced on the manufacturer, the distributor, or the installer. These rules, again, are being amended to implement some control measures that were in our 2022 Air Quality Management Plan. We have identified zero-emission technology for all space and water heating units that are subject to the rules. We did an update to stationary source back in October. November, we held our set hearing. At that time, it was decided to, instead of doing a 30-day, we did a 90-day set hearing to set this rule for February 7, 2025. Some of the concerns that were raised were regarding to outreach, and if we've gotten out enough outreach, and the cost and affordability of the proposals. Next slide, please. It's just an update since the last meeting. We have done increased public outreach, additional site visits. We held another working group meeting in early December, presented some revised rule language. We have, as of last week, we received 38 comment letters, like as of the posting of this presentation. About 33 of those were in support from environmental groups, community groups, the American Lung Association, League of Women Voters. We had 5 letters that were either against or wanted delays or some changes. We also got a letter from the Orange County Council of Governors, the OCCOG. This week, as an update, we've had about 15 new letters that have come in, many of those from chambers of commerce or other COGs that, again, oppose the requirement or want delays or some changes to the regulation, the proposed regulation. So we're working to address some of those concerns, and really the main issue of concern is affordability. Next slide, please. So when it comes to that increased outreach, I think you all have gotten a copy of the infographic that we have designed that has further links. We've been developing that and getting that out to the public. We also did presentations to the Lake Arrowhead Chamber of Commerce, as well as the OCCOG. We are working to set up meetings with the other COGs throughout the region. It has been the holiday season, so it's been a little challenging to get those meetings set up, but we are working on those, likely to come in January. We also presented at the Inland Empire Regional Energy and Climate Hub Conference. And we did increase our notification about our meetings and our rule development pretty significantly, including announcing it on social media, something we don't typically do for, say, a working group meeting. Next slide, please. And it was successful. We did have our working group meeting, had more attendees than we ever had before, with about 140 participants. We usually have around 100, so we still have quite a bit of engagement. We presented some new concepts when it comes to high altitude households, multifamily properties, and homes with newer ACs. We presented some cost examples, which we'll also go over here, and we discussed updates to our preliminary rule. Next slide, please. So this is a little busy slide, but these are some of the concepts that we presented, one of which is to extend that future effective date We were establishing it in 2027 for water heating and 2028 for space heating. We're now proposing to delay both of those to 2029, which actually does line up with our control measure from the AQMD. We also included provisions for emergency replacement, and if construction is needed, that will just allow some additional time before that transition would be required. We also added in provisions for homes with newer ACs and homes up in the high altitude areas to allow more time for them to transition. So from 2029 to 2035, to allow those gas units to be sold, but to couple that with a mitigation fee, which could help further fund our Go Zero program. We also added in a provision for multifamily properties. The idea is if you have a large property, you can have some gas units that you can swap in if there is an emergency. It just gives more flexibility and more time as to really help ease the transition to these zero emission appliances. And the last provision we put in was one for buildings that are currently under construction. So these new buildings to allow, if the permit was issued before rule adoption, to kind of grandfather in those gas units. New buildings will already be required under the state building code, Title 24, to go to zero. So this just aligns with the way that is also going to be implemented. Next slide, please. As far as the comments that we received, the environmental groups really want us to try to minimize the carve-outs and the exemptions so that we could, maintain a very strong rule. They do not support extending the compliance dates. They would rather get those dates in sooner, get the rule adopted sooner. Multifamily properties and business groups do support the carve-outs and the flexibility. They also support that 2029 implementation date. And other comments that we got is to really focus on ensuring that funding is available and to really, do our best to address the affordability and concerns for low-income housing. Next slide, please. So when it comes to affordability, really the biggest thing the rule does to try to address affordability is to only require the zero emission appliance when on replacement. So when your water heater or your HVAC system goes down and you have to replace it, and if it's after that 2029 date, that's when you would have to install the zero emission appliance. So you already have that expense. You're already going to be purchasing that unit, and now you're going to transition to the zero. And we did demonstrate that the proposal is cost effective, so it's below our cost screening threshold. However, we understand that is different than talking about affordability and really the cost. And again, we have concerns about how the low-income households are going to be able to, handle that additional cost. That's why the Go Zero program is really trying to target those overburdened areas with 75% of the costs. And we also have concerns about cost outliers. There really are certain installations, certain households that the cost is a lot more than what we typically see. We do have a big data set that shows kind of ranges, and there are some very expensive installations. So we have concerns about that and are trying to find a way to address those. And the last one is when it comes to stranded assets. So a home with a newer AC, how to address that? We put in a provision I mentioned earlier that if you have a newer AC, when you're purchasing a furnace only, it's actually quite a bit more expensive. So if you have a new AC, to give you the ability to put in a gas furnace, and that will really help address the cost. So going to the next slide. Just, why are we discussing air conditionings? I've said it several times in this presentation when these rules apply to furnaces, talking Rule 1111. Well, the most common zero emission furnace is a heat pump. And a heat pump is actually two appliances in one. It provides both heating and cooling. They're also extremely efficient. They can be 3 to 5 times more efficient than a typical gas unit, especially in our climate zone where we have mild and hot climates. So that can result in operating cost difference. So even though in our region, electricity is more expensive than natural gas, because of that efficiency, you can actually save money on your utilities. However, if you're only replacing a furnace, not a furnace and an AC, then there's a significant upfront cost to transitioning to a heat pump, though you do get the added value of the cooling. So next slide, please. So the next 4 slides are a little different than what was posted last week. We had all the costs on one slide. Thought it would be much easier to walk through if we had it broken out. So these are our examples. So if you have a heating, ventilation, and air conditioning system that you need to replace, so your HVAC system goes down and you need to replace it, if you put a traditional gas unit in, it's going to cost about $18,800. Home appliances are expensive. So if you're past that future effective date, you have to transition to a heat pump. Based on the median costs, it actually, in this scenario, you're probably going to save money. It's going to be a little bit less expensive than a conventional unit. There may be rebates out there as well, and then you can save on your utility bills. Next slide, please. The other examples show, a bigger cost difference. So if you have to replace your air conditioning unit, and you can replace your air conditioning with another air conditioning. Those are already zero emission units. However, if you replace your air conditioner with a heat pump, now you have the added benefit of heating and cooling, but there is a price premium. They are more expensive to put in a heat pump than to put in an air conditioning. Next slide, please. Then when it comes to furnace only, so if you don't have an AC, or maybe you don't need an AC because it's a newer AC, this is where that cost differential is pretty high. There is additional high upfront cost. However, if you hadn't had an AC before, you now put in a heat pump, now you have the ability to cool your home, which is very important in our region. We have about 90% of the homes in our region already have air conditioning. And that cost differential can be bridged with incentives and rebates. Next slide, please. There is another option that I haven't discussed yet, and it is electric resistance. Those are also zero emission heaters, but they don't have that same efficiency, so they can be more expensive to operate. But these units make sense, and we did see them on several site visits in coastal areas where you don't have a lot of high heat needs. They can make a lot of sense. They cost about the same as a gas furnace, but they will be more expensive to operate if you operate it a lot. Next slide, please. And then the water heating example. We do show that there's about a $2,000 increase to go to the heat pump water heater from the conventional one. That's why actually when you see most of the rebate programs, they offer a higher rebate for the water side to try to bridge that difference. And so rebates and incentives can really help with that cost differential. These are actually a newer technology than HVAC systems, these heat pump water heaters. So we do expect in time those costs will come down, and there are, at least currently, a lot of rebates available. Okay, next slide, please. So again, when it comes to concerns over affordability, have concerns with low income residents, may have trouble with that upfront cost, and that, again, there's going to be installations where those costs are significant. So, the Go Zero and other incentive programs will really help address that affordability. They can be stacked. There's a considerable amount of different programs that can be stacked together to help with those costs. But the question remains, will those funds stay? And as we talked about in the previous item, Go Zero can't reach every household. And the current funding is limited, and the future is uncertain when it comes to these fundings. So next slide, please. So we would like to have some more time kind of to address these affordability concerns, to try to figure out how we can address the concerns while still maximizing the NOx emission reductions. We would like to take some ideas to another working group meeting to have further discussions on how we can address these. We want to continue our outreach efforts. Like I said, we're on calendar to meet with the different COGs, but not until the January timeframe. The holidays are upon us. So we would suggest maybe to return to stationary in February to provide an update on the further outreach that we've conducted. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions before we go to public comment?
Go ahead. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, just a couple quick questions. On the affordability stuff, I mean, I've seen the different scenarios, and I definitely support extending this out and getting more information out. When I went around to my cities and local businesses, they had no clue this is coming in. And so, I'm just taking my house, for example. I just can't replace, I have 2 AC units and heaters, and I would need to upgrade my panels, and I got to get better service from this, from the street to my house in order to increase it. And my electric bills are higher too. So it's not just upfront costs. compare the cost of the energy to the gas. My gas bill is always pretty low. My electric bill is always pretty high. And so I'm just wondering, as you work some of those scenarios out, can you look at the different examples? A typical home, yes, a multifamily unit, a business. And my overall concern is we're in a, it's hard for housing is not keeping up with our income levels for most of our generations right now. So how is this going to be passed on out? But I appreciate the reaching out and going out to the communities and talking some more to them, but try to figure in those operational costs as well as the upfront costs.
Other comments? Go ahead.
Thank you for the presentation. I really appreciated the comparisons, but I had a question on slide 6, specifically, I guess the third green one down. The newer ACs got extended to 2035, but the first one on top is only extended to 2029. Wondering why the difference?
So the idea is if you have a newer air conditioner in your home and you need to replace your furnace, you could put in a heat pump, but now you've kind of made that AC redundant, so that becomes a stranded asset. So we wanted to address that situation. So between the future effective year of 2029 to 2035, if you have a newer AC, like newer than 10 years, to allow the installation of a gas unit. ACs that are older than that would typically get replaced at the same time as your furnace. But if you have a new AC, we just did want to address that potential stranded asset.
And I would add the 2035 is basically a sunset date for the allowance of that provision.
Okay. Yeah, marinate on that a little bit, but thank you. That's my only question.
Vice Chair Caccione.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. On the same slide, number 6, in the top one, extending the compliance date to 2029 for both furnace and, wasn't our compliance, what were the compliance dates before, 2027 and 2028 or?
2027 for water and 2028 for space heating.
Okay, so I support this. That's great. What about, remember we talked about technology checks? How are those, how do we factor those in now in this scenario?
Okay, so for the technology check-in, yeah, once we move these dates, we might want to consider moving that technology check-in to be a little bit later to address that later implementation time. I did want to mention that heat pumps are getting sold in significant numbers as of 2022. They've been outpacing gas furnace sales.
Okay, great.
Thank you. Supervisor Mitchell.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I want to echo Mr. Hagman's acknowledgement of the staff who've been working hard on this for well over a year now, and I appreciate your step up on the outreach. I see that it proved fruitful. People showed up. I also really appreciate that cost comparison slides. I think that was important for us to see. I've got a couple questions, then just want to share some thoughts, if I may, Mr. Chair. First of all, I deeply appreciate the various organizations expressing their concern about affordability. And I'm just curious if letters from the Chambers of Commerce or the COGS, in addition to expressing their concerns about affordability, if they had any actual recommendations on how we could help it be more affordable to people.
If I might, can I just add my question to hers? It was almost the exact same question. I wanted to know what technology we're encouraging to be developed so that it could become affordable. But yeah, great question.
Staff response.
So the technology that is really taking hold, that's really expanding, is heat pumps. And we actually did get a letter this week from a water heater manufacturer who actually does not like the delay in the compliance dates, because the sooner those dates go into effect, the sooner the costs are going to go down. So the idea is having that regulatory push and those market signals will help bring those costs down.
And if I may, I'd like to go back to my question. You referenced numerous letters from COGS and Chambers of Commerce. And my question is, are their letters just expressing concern about affordability, or are they making any recommendations?
Supervisor, if I may, in the review of the letters, I don't recall seeing any specific recommendations.
Thank you for that. Second question, if we could talk a little bit about the ramification of either further delays or carve-outs to the actual NOx reduction. You know, I recall this isn't the first time we've heard this rule in this committee, and I, was, really optimistic when I understood that staff estimated 10 tons per day of avoided NOx. And that, that's 70% of all of our NOx emissions. I asked my consultant to do a little quick analysis for me in terms of, so I could get a sense of what we've done accumulatively since I joined the board 2 years ago. And, this alone would reduce more than all the rules we've passed in the last 2 years accumulatively. So that reinforced for me how significant this is. So what would be the ramifications to that if we delay or proceed with the carve-outs you've already mentioned, or even consider additional carve-outs? What would the actual NOx reduction potentially be?
So with the current carve-outs that we have in the rule now, or that we've talked about today, would just be a delay. It wouldn't detract from those emission reductions. It would just take longer for us to achieve those emission reductions. I would like to say these units do have a long useful life. So any delay, when you delay a couple of years, that means, this additional 25 years of those higher emitting technologies being used.
Okay, and I appreciate you acknowledging that last year more heat pumps were sold in the U.S. than gas furnaces. And as you said, we got the letter from the heat pump manufacturer saying, the sooner we mandate or encourage people to buy heat pumps, it will impact the technology. Mr. Chair, if I may, I just feel compelled to express, frankly, some frustration as a AQMD member and as a member of Stationary Source. I went to DC on my LA County trip, spent some time with the EPA, asking for grace that they support us in our efforts to get into compliance. And when we recognize what we truly have control over, it's stationary sources versus mobile source. So that's why I really look to this committee to help get us there. And I have to say, I have this growing frustration. I'm sure all of you saw the December 15th LA Times editorial. And if I may quote, when they said, air quality regulators are reneging on their promise to enact long delayed rules to curb health damaging and planet warming pollution from the ports. In doing nothing, once again, the South Coast Air Quality Management District has failed to do its only job, cowering in the face of opposition from organized labor and powerful business interests. And I realize that's a separate issue. It's about the ports. But I have to say, as I hear about the letters of opposition and the kinds of groups that are opposing the amendments to these rules, it's like it's the accumulative effect. When are we going to kind of stand in the face of this opposition and really push forward to really do what we are designed and are the only entity that's empowered to do, which is to regulate these areas and work adamantly to improve air quality. Now, affordability, no one understands that more than me, given the districts that I've represented my entire elected career. But going back to my first question, so I love the fact that COGS and chambers of commerce are concerned about affordability, but where are the recommendations on what we do about it? If we delay, if we continue to carve out, what impact will the carve-outs have on our actual NOx reductions? And what are we doing to actually come up with recommendations around affordability? I would love for us to consider perhaps, Mr. Chair, a subcommittee of this committee where we include people who we are expressing our concern about, low-income households, include them in the decision-making process of, from their perspective, what more could we do to increase affordability beyond the incentives that we've talked about. I'm disappointed in the concept of further delay with nothing on the table to actually resolve the supposed cause for the delay, which is concerns around affordability. So I'm disappointed, to say the least, but hope that if it is the pleasure of this committee and the board as a whole to delay, that we actually authentically spend some time addressing the issue of affordability in a real and concrete way, so as not to simply continue to delay, continue to acquiesce to concerns expressed by industry, but that we actually take some courageous stands on behalf of the people who we are here to supposedly represent. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Chair Delgado.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to respond to that. I also, Supervisor, saw the article from the LA Times, but I thought it was really essentially rhetoric and didn't have any thoughtful solutions either. I know that in the last year, we have passed, international groundbreaking rules. We have pushed the limits wherever we can. And I feel very comfortable that in this particular case, the equipment that we're talking about is still not yet truly affordable to people. And it's just more complicated than we had hoped for. But we're continuing to move forward to that goal. And I don't think it has anything to do with the business community at all. And honestly, don't understand why they would have to come up with a solution, because we're not asking that of any stakeholder. That's our job, and I'm committed to it. I'm not swaying from that. This is coming from our staff. It's not a political thing. It's not about stakeholders. This is just that we're not ready. And there's no other examples, because we are the first ones. We are charting a path, and I want to do it right so that everybody else comes along with us.
Thank you, Chair. I agree with you entirely. This is the first real rule that affects everybody in the air district. It's not a rule that where we're talking about costs on industries. We're talking about the cost on individual homeowners and those with limited income, fixed income, et cetera. And therefore, it's really incumbent on us to really look carefully at the cost that it's going to be borne by these individual homeowners. So I agree. We need to get it right. We don't have a refinery out there or whatever that's got all kinds of money to offset the costs. So I think it's appropriate that we take time to really look at and try to get a real good handle on the costs of this rule. Any other comments before we go to public comment?
Question?
Yes, go ahead.
Question, Mr. Chair, thanks. Cody kind of referred to this about going through upgrading his system and having part of it plug into the Edison system. A couple of the comments I got from my cities I represent and mayors was the grid reliability as we transition everything from transportation and these home appliances over to electric. What's the prognosis or prediction for grid reliability in the next 5 or 10? Because as we've dealt with that, and I dealt with that in our city as we just converted an entire police fleet over to electric, only 20-some vehicles. But it took Edison a long time to transition, get all the transformers, upgrade their system to connect, just for a little city of South Pasadena with 20 police vehicles, all electric. Some superchargers, mind you, but still, what are your thoughts working with Edison and our predictions?
We have been in discussions with Edison, but for a lot of these appliances, like if your home already has air conditioning, you're not going to need an upgrade. These are actually as efficient or more efficient than your existing air conditioning unit. There may be some additional needs for that water heater. However, they're even coming out with some plug-in ones that can plug into a normal, they're already out now. They're in the stores where you can just plug it into your regular outlet. So there won't be a huge increase on the grid for the appliances that we're talking about under 1111 and 1121. But Edison is looking at it, and they're doing an evaluation actually right now to see what the impacts would be.
And along that same line, as I've mentioned before, Edison and DWP are not the only providers. There are a lot of municipal electric generators that we need to be talking to also.
There I have at least three in my district: Burbank, Glendale, Azusa, or Pasadena. So yeah, thanks for reminding.
Okay, any further comments before we go to public comment?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I raised my hand again, if I may.
Sure, go ahead.
Thank you. I just wanted to respond to Madam President. I am clear that it is our responsibility, but when you have a wave of business-oriented associations declaring their concern about affordability, I do think it's everyone's responsibility. If you're going to say no to a policy, request delays, that you should be a part of the problem-solving process too, in terms of making recommendations. I'm clear it falls on us, which is why I hope that we truly spend some time supporting staff, but us as a committee and a board, walking through what would make us more comfortable, what would make it more palatable to Mr. Hagman based on his arrangement in his own home in terms of moving forward with this. I think we all have a role to play to come up with some potential solutions on, if we're concerned about affordability, what we intend to do about it to be able to bring these amendments forward.
That makes perfect sense. That makes complete sense, Supervisor.
Thank you. I'm closing the queue on the inline comment. We have a total in-house and online of 53 commenters. Therefore, I'm going to limit the time to 1.5 minutes each. And we'll start with the in-house. First is David Cofero. And next will be Mary Caparro. If you could line up in the queue, it would help.
Mayor?
Go ahead.
I'm
Yes.
sorry, just to interrupt for just a second. I know you said this during your opening comments, that you were going to close the comment period after the presentation.
Right.
I just wanted to remind people that you, in fact, close the comment after the presentation.
Right.
Thank you.
And Mr. Chair, how many speakers we have?
Total of 53.
And if you did that for 3 minutes each, we'd be here for 3 hours. So plus
1.5 minutes.
And you're going to lose your quorum.
Would it be acceptable, 1.5 minutes?
Yes.
That's still an hour and a half.
It's 11:30 now. I know I have other commitments.
Maybe have to go to a minute, Larry, so we don't lose
everybody.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll limit the comments to 1 minute, 1 minute each. Sorry about that, but too many people want to talk, and I'm afraid some of it might be redundant. If everyone would get up and say "me too," that would be great. Go ahead, David.
Good morning. Thank you. I'm here on
Turn on your mic.
Turn
on your mic.
Oh, it's not on.
Closer, maybe.
Or lift it up closer to
your
face. There we go.
Don't take this out of my time.
No, it won't go off your time.
I'm Dave Cafaro. I'm here on behalf of the Greater Irvine Chamber of Commerce, as well as our ethnic and cultural chambers, which represent the businesses of our community. We've heard loud and clear from our membership that they're concerned about the cost of mandatory electrification for a number of reasons. First of all, the conversion costs, which have been discussed. We're in an environment where our members, our businesses are experiencing tremendous inflation, wage costs, insurance costs that are up. Every day we hear from businesses that are being offered opportunities to leave the state, leave our city. and we're trying our best to keep businesses here. We think that a clean environment is a wonderful thing, but we think that this idea of a mandatory transition is an idea whose time has not yet come. So we stand in opposition to this. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Mary?
Good morning. My name is Mary Caporelli, and I'm here on behalf of Boys and Girls Republic, a nonprofit organization dedicated to supporting vulnerable youth in our state's child welfare system. I'm here today to urge you to vote no on moving the on these proposed regulations, and allow me to outline a few key reasons why. The gentleman before me went over most of them, but many of our students come from low-income families in Los Angeles and San Bernardino counties. Right now, their parents need subsidies, transportation subsidies, just to get to visit their kids. I can assure you, these families will not have the funds to retrofit their homes. Rebates come later, nor will they have the sophistication to navigate the incentive programs your staff says will be available. In closing, I'm going to tell you, please just vote no. This is
Thank you very much for your comments. Deborah Parada? Welcome, council member.
And wanted to make sure that you guys know that I'm not representing my council. My council has not taken an opinion on this. This is just my opinion. So I am not for this emotion or event. I'm more so from an emergency preparedness perspective. I don't want to see us putting our appliances as a one source appliance. We need to be able to have our appliances have different sources of energy that we all can use and enjoy. It's not good for public safety. It's not good for public health to have appliances and vehicles that don't use multiple sources of energy. You don't want to just put them onto electric. I would grieve the day that I had an all-electric police force, because that would just really be, if the grid goes down, how are we going to protect our residents? So please do not vote for this. And I'm also wondering why the electric gold medallion homes of the city.
Thank you, Deborah. Next, Ernest Shaw.
All right. Oh, darn. Thank you. Good morning. Good morning. What's up, everybody? My name is Ernie Shaw. I'm president for Utility Workers of America, Local 483, Transmissions and Storage. So, yeah, just definitely against this. You know, on behalf of my members, not a lot of us can afford a lot of these, new measures that are coming. I don't think it's ready. I don't think it's well thought out. I think it's just, here it is. Deal with it. It's your problem. How are you going to figure out how to afford it? Oh, well. So if there was a way to make it better, I don't know why they just don't, or nobody comes and talks to us who deal with NOx emissions on the daily and how to avoid that. So that's one thing. Or talk to my buddy Saudi Costanzo at ILWU 13 with the longshoremen. Bring us into the conversation. We'll be happy, because by drastically reducing usage of diesel and increasing natural gas blended with hydrogen, along with green hydrogen, that'll work toward.
Thank you very much. Next, Fernando Gaitan.
Been to this before. Fernando Gaitan with Earth Justice. I strongly urge you to pass zero NOx rules for water heaters and furnaces. Rule 1111, 1121 are essential. Supervisor Mitchell hit the nail on the head. With ozone attainment never been attained, this is a problem for this region, and we need this rule to pass. What you're likely to hear today are industry lobbyists seeking obstructions, seeking to derail this process and lob grenades at the 11th hour. They really want to shut this down and prevent and create regulatory paralysis. It's akin to a government shutdown for this agency. And we know that most Californians want their government to work. Many of you on the board want their government to work. So we urge you to pass these rules. Staff have put in a lot of effort to make these rules a balanced approach. They've reached out to communities. They've done a technology check-in that's going to allow us to course correct if we need to. Please pass the rules in February.
Thank you, Fernando. Next, Susan Kaflish.
Hi there, my name is Suzanne. I'm here as a member of the public. I'm here to speak in strong support of the board adopting the amended rules 1111 and 1121 with no more delays. I live in Northeast Los Angeles, and over the past couple of weeks, there have been days where the air in my neighborhood has been nearly unbreathable. And for multiple days, the AQI was over 120. In conditions like these, whenever I went outside, my eyes would water, my throat would burn. I tried to stay in my house whenever possible, but when I did have to leave for work or to get groceries, I found myself worrying about getting sick and also feeling anger that so many kids are missing school, developing respiratory problems because of this pollution. Keep in mind, this poor air quality is being caused by sources of pollution that we can do something about. I really appreciated the points made by staff that electric heat pumps outsold gas furnaces last year. We know that zero emission technologies for space and water heating exist. And
thank you for your comments. Kevin Barker.
Good morning. Kevin Barker with SoCalGas. First, I'd like to thank South Coast staff for meeting with us again to discuss this rulemaking. I'd also like to acknowledge staff on the progress they've made towards addressing stakeholder issues by updating cost assumptions. And we also appreciate their efforts with public outreach and the development of the Rule 1111 and 1121 fact sheet. Our biggest concern with this rulemaking are customer affordability and federal EPCA preemption. While we agree with staff's recommendations to bring these rules back to committee in February, rather than moving forward with adoption of these rules on February 7th, we hope that South Coast will delay this rulemaking until these other issues are resolved. Prior rule amendments have not required residents to invest in costly modifications for their space and water heaters. And finally, we express concerns with federal preemption under Rule 1146.2, and we have similar concerns with rules.
Thank you, Kevin. Ann Malari.
My name is Ann Malari. I have more than 25 years of experience working in Orange County to help low-income families. I'm currently the CEO of We Care Orange County, which focuses on homeless prevention. Unfortunately, I have seen firsthand the growing population of families that are struggling to address basic needs such as rent, paying their utilities, and buying food, while also trying to access medical care for their children and their loved ones. I also have experience as an elected official, serving as a councilwoman in the city of Cypress and mayor for 1 year. I just completed my term, and I appreciate the position you are in. It's difficult to design a regulation that meets your specific objectives while also supporting important California initiatives such as affordable housing. Please, respectively, I ask you, delay.
Thank you for your comments. Next, Alexander Kim.
Yes, good morning, everybody. My name is Alexander Kim, representing the Asian Business Association of Orange County. I'm the board secretary. And our board decided to really say to delay this implementation because, the Asian Pacific Islander populations, we're the fastest growing demographic in California with the population exceeding 15%. And a majority of us own small businesses. So we believe this implementation will really inordinately affect our population. We own restaurants, grocery stores, dry cleaners, even the motels industry. You have over 90% owned by South Asian Americans. We've dealt with post-COVID, the high inflation costs, and a couple of things that Supervisor Mitchell mentioned were pretty important. But, a couple of suggestions would be, in addition to having subsidies and rebates, please consider small businesses as well, because we're struggling. And look at.
Thank you for your comments, Wes.
Frudeman, speaking as almost a lifelong LA County resident and someone who's worked in the public health field for a long time. As a homeowner, 3 years ago, we converted our electric or our gas water heater to a heat pump water heater. And at the time, there weren't 120-volt options on the table. So we had to hire an electrician, and the cost was significantly more. However, 3 years down the road, there are many more options. And I think another really important element to discuss, and one of the reasons why we did it as an early adopter, is because I looked into the research as a parent of 2 young children, and the very high and troubling association with indoor air pollution from gas appliances. And if you end up having asthmatic children, the cost of that lifelong care is really immeasurable, let alone all the other cost of productivity and whatnot. So I think that's a really important element. There are tremendous benefits from this type of technology, and we're much further along than we were.
Thank you, Wes. Next is Michelle.
Good morning, members of the board. My name is Michelle Kim, and I represent a youth advocacy group in San Gabriel Valley. We are here in strong support of the implementation of the proposed amended rules 1111 and 1121 in February and express our concern about any further delays. Our region continues to face severe air quality issues, and the 2022 AQMD rightly identified zero emission solutions as critical to achieving necessary NOx reductions, and those rules are a vital part of implementing that vision. We've had more than 14 months of extensive public process, and this plan is the result of thorough technical work and stakeholder engagement. Further delay would only create confusion, slow down momentum, and prolong the use of polluting technologies in our homes. The longer we wait, the more we lock in harmful, outdated fossil fuel applications for years to come. The need for clean air is urgent. We urge you to implement these regulations in February without delay.
Thank you, Michelle. Next, we have Topher.
Good morning, board. My name is Topher Mathers. I'm the organizing and policy specialist with Active San Gabriel Valley. We are a community-based organization headquartered in the city of El Monte. Our mission is to create a more sustainable and equitable liberal San Gabriel Valley. We strongly support moving forward with Rule 1111 and 1121. Active HV has placed specific focus on and energy on advancing our mission in high-need disadvantaged communities that suffer most from the intractable challenges facing the county. Most relevant to this committee meeting is exposure to air pollution. As you're all aware, the county of Los Angeles suffers from some of the worst air pollution in the United States. The outcomes of such poor air quality are devastating. The cost of these health disparities are in the billions. We know that this committee, the governing board, and the staff deeply care about combating air pollution. We need strong and immediate clean air policies given the acute air pollution problem facing the region. Zero emission solutions exist for appliances. For example, heat pumps are available and exploding in popularity. We urge you to stay on course and pass Rule 1111 and 1121 during the upcoming February meeting. AQMD staff have spent more than 14.
Thank you. Next, Thomas.
Hi, my name is Thomas Kim, and I'm a junior at Arcadia High School, and I'm a student advocate of Shared Streets. I am here to support the implementation of proposed Rules 1111 and 1121. Rules 1111 and 1121 represent a crucial step toward improving air quality in this region by transitioning to zero-emission building appliances. By adopting these measures, we can address the significant health impacts caused by methane gas-burning appliances and achieve cleaner, healthier air for our communities. I believe it is a crucial step that we advocate for future generations who serve to inherit the benefits of clear air and a healthy environment. Thank you for taking the time to hear my voice and consider the importance of these life-saving measures.
Thank you, Thomas. Next, Lillian Liang.
Hi, my name is Lillian Liang, and I'm here as a member of the public. I strongly support the board adopting the amended rules 1111 and 1121 for zero NOx appliances with no more delays. I'm a resident of Northeast LA in a neighborhood that regularly has days with AQI over 100. The air quality gets so bad that my neighbor, who is asthmatic and depends on transit, cannot be outside for more than an hour without getting sick, and that impacts her day-to-day living, her ability to get to work, to school, to her appointments, to the store, for food. My neighborhood also has a lot of children and elderly who take walks and play outside and breathe this air every day. And I'd like to uplift the staff report and comments from the board that a big cause of this dirty air comes from homes, apartments, and buildings, and that upgrading these appliances to zero emission technologies is within the realm of possibility. We urgently need to adopt these rules to support public health, and I understand that these rules are the largest emission reduction effort in more than 3 decades.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. Good morning, Chris.
Morning, Chris Chavez with Coalition for Clean Air. I want to convey our support for Rules 1111 and 1121 as currently proposed, as well as express our opposition to a further delay in weakening the rules, and really express my personal disappointment in the weak leadership of this committee and this board. The truth is today is a foregone conclusion, and I'm equally sure that barring a complete capitulation by the district, in a few months the opposition will still be opposed and the goalposts will be moved yet again. We've participated in this process and given it a chance in good faith. And despite that, just like on the ports, we're continuing to be rolled and disregarded. Over the past few years, we've gotten landmark protections passed by working together. But if this district is going to continue along this path of delay and backstepping, I'd advise that you should not take us for granted. I say that not as a threat, but as a plea for you to give us a reason to continue working in partnership with the district. Delaying this rule does not help your cause. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Pete Marsh.
Good morning, Chair, Commissioners, public. Thank you. Pete Marsh, member of the public. I live in Long Beach, as does my 8-year-old granddaughter, Hazel, who has asthma. We keep a rescue inhaler for her at our house for the many pleasurable times she comes to visit. I've had a successful military and business career, strong support for these rules both. The replace upon retirement approach that this rule Thank you. The replace upon retirement approach that this rule mandates and funds is the most cost-effective approach to decarbonizing the entire economy. It's the core concept also of capital asset recapitalization budget cycles used by all business enterprises of any significant size. The asset would have to be replaced anyway. Replace it with an asset that uses a different energy source. The costs being presented by opponents and echoed, unfortunately, by some of you are mostly exaggerated.
Thank you. Bruce Smith.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm not a lobbyist, I'm a taxpayer. Most terrifying words in the English language, according to Ronald Reagan. I'm from the government and I'm here to help. Why on earth would you elect to move more appliances from reliable, clean, less expensive form of fuel to costly, less efficient, overburdened, less reliable source to save 3% of nitrogen oxide output, which the antidote of overdose is to step outside into the clean air. The air is cleaner today in Southern California than it has been since it's been monitored. What is the cost? Is the cost worth that? And are you aware the byproduct emissions from other countries entering California every day would eliminate any savings? Just this last summer, the government called on electrical emergency, asking people with electric cars not to plug in their cars because the power grid could not handle the air conditioners due to the heat. And now we're going to add more to that madness. Let the consumer pay as they replace as they choose and as they need. Give them options. Let the technology develop. Don't shove it down my throat.
Thank you. Peggy Hazlett.
Peggy Hazlett, CEO of Greater Ontario Business Council. We represent over 500 businesses in the inland Southern California region, and I'm here today to express our significant concerns regarding the proposed amended rules. We need to be concerned with the financial impact that's going to have not just to our residents, but also to our businesses and then therefore our workforce. We need to be concerned with the implementation concerns and the timeline that is existing right now. And then the economic analysis needs to be further studied. Going back to one of the comments that was made by the supervisor, that the outreach has been limited. When you outreach in the Inland Empire to the Lake Arrowhead Chamber of Commerce, and then yet there's not been no outreach to the Greater Ontario Business Council, I respectfully request that you do make that immediate outreach to us so that we reach our businesses and our constituency in the west end of the Inland Empire. Supervisor Hagman will work directly with your office to make sure that that happens, sir. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for your comments. Mike?
Hello, I'm Mike Leoraka, CEO of Abound Food Care, an organization that works to reduce the harmful effects of food insecurity on those mired in poverty, and also to reduce food waste, which has an environmental impact. I'd like to point out a couple of items. One is that the cost estimates that were given earlier are based on current market conditions. As we move further away from natural gas, electricity costs will rise, which leads to the other point, which is every time costs go up, it is passed along to the consumer, and those that are on the bottom rung of the economic ladder slip into food insecurity, slip into poverty. I'd like for you to bear that in mind. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Good morning, Chris.
Good morning. Chris Murray, Executive Director of the Association of California Cities, Orange County. Collectively, we represent more than 3 million people in the region. One of the first that we heard about these proposed rules was at the OCOG presentation, and so that's why I'm here today. We want to be a partner with AQMD in this agency. Our organization has a long history of supporting sustainable, energy-efficient policies that truly move the needle. As we all know, and it's not your purview, unfortunately, it's mobile sources that are causing the preponderance of NOx emissions in Southern California, and it's one area that the federal government refuses to let us engage in. I've worked in the transportation industry professionally for more than 30 years. I've had these discussions with you and your team, and we all know that's where we need to work together to get the authority to manage the freight, the shipping, and the rail transportation modes that are causing the lion's share of NOx emissions. And
thank you very much. Thank you, Chris. Next, Robert Castaneda.
Yeah, hi, my name is Robert Castaneda, and I'm a member of the Low Income Oversight Board with the California Public Utilities Commission. Much of what I was going to express today has already been said, so I won't be redundant. But, at the end of the day, our board, because we advise the commission on crucial decisions impacting low-income public purpose programs around energy, we're going down this road. We're trying to thread the needle of affordability, efficiency, while at the same time protecting and enhancing a greater and a better environment. So I think there was made mention earlier today of perhaps the development of a subcommittee. We think that we can contribute greatly to that effort simply with providing data that is complete, that is not parsed, that is not subjective, but at the end of the day deals with affordability. One of the concerns that we're wrestling with right now are arrearages in the state of California. The Public Utilities Commission have nearly $2 billion in arrearages through.
Thank you, Robert. Next, Luis.
Good morning. My name is Luis Portillo. I'm the president and CEO for the San Gabriel Valley Economic Partnership. I want to first commend the work done by the staff to address affordability concerns. I know that was addressed in one of the previous meetings. One of the things we saw this past election, that affordability is really on top of people's minds. People are getting frustrated of how expensive things have gotten. And so that's why we're glad to see that there's going to continue to work and see how we can address those concerns, which staff have acknowledged are real, that we will have some folks who will be facing significant costs. And I would just urge the district that if you find that you don't have a way to address some of those affordability concerns, that you just consider not moving forward with the rule. Because if ultimately we approve a rule that places a disproportionate burden on certain individuals, not only are we placing that burden on a small group, we're undermining their belief that we can have clean air in a practical and affordable manner. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Peter.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and committee members. Peter Whittingham speaking today on behalf of BizFed. BizFed has provided several comment letters regarding proposed amended rules 1111, 1121, focusing on the significant concerns that exist with these rules, which include their very real potential to detrimentally impact the region's housing market, which is already at crisis levels. We concur with the next steps elements shown in slide 13, as we strongly believe that more work and analysis is done, as well as more time to broaden the public awareness campaign required by your governing board at your November meeting, given the unique nature of these rules and how they directly impact residents rather than those typically regulated by the district. The assertion that you're hearing from just industry lobbyists and business groups is wholly inaccurate. You're starting to hear from members of the public and the COGs who represent your members of the public. Those are the voices of the 17 million people who live in this region who are, as Luis just mentioned, desperately concerned about affordability of this. So we plea for your continued consideration of these rules before you.
Thank you, Peter. Bruce has already spoken, so we'll go on to the online comments now. Now turn it over to Vice Chair Cacciati.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First speaker is Henry Rogers. Henry, go ahead. You have 1 minute, please, and welcome.
Hi, welcome. Good morning. I'm speaking today on behalf of the Harbor Association of Industry and Commerce and the South Bay Association. of Chambers of Commerce in opposition of the amended rules. While we share the goal of improving air quality, our independent analysis reveals significant concerns with the current proposals. The cost effectiveness analysis severely underestimates real-world impacts by 66%. Panel upgrade costs alone are undervalued per unit, and the implementation timeline is particularly problematic with technology assessments scheduled after compliance begins. We respectfully urge delaying the adoption to allow revive cost analysis using regional data, technology assessment before implementation, and expanded compliance pathways, including ultra-low NOx alternatives. These modifications would maintain environmental progress while ensuring feasibility implementation for our diverse business community and residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Henry. Next speaker is Richard Markison. Richard, go ahead, please.
Good morning, members of the board. I'm Richard Markison, representing the Plumbing, Heating, Cooling Contractors of California. We're the small businessmen and women who will be on the front line of making the replacements of natural gas appliances with all-electric appliances. We truly appreciate the work that the staff has done over the intervening period to modify and to delay implementation. I would caution you, however, we're very active in the American Water Heating Institute on alternate appliances. While there are have been some improvements in the plug-in heat pump water heaters, they're not at the stage yet where we believe that they would satisfy the demands of consumers. And we do agree with Council Member Parada that consumers deserve multiple energy choices, and we support maintaining those options for consumers. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Richard. Next speaker has an area code of 760. Go ahead, please. You're muted.
Hello? Hello?
We can hear you. Go ahead, please.
Okay, hi, my name is Linda. I'm from the general public out in Coachella Valley, and I oppose these amendments. I think putting another layer of regulations and rules on Californians, we're struggling out here. I'm just the general public, and we are struggling with record inflation. California is one of the most expensive states to live in, and frankly, I've had many people that I know leave, and it's just becoming too much of a burden, so I urge you to vote no.
Thank you. Next speaker is Clint Oliver. Clint, go ahead, please. Clint, you're muted.
Thank you. My name is Clint Olivier. I'm the CEO of the Central Valley Business Federation, or BizFed. I'm here today to voice our strong opposition and concern to the proposed amended rules, as well as the precedent they could set for other regions. The rules affect everyone, not just industry. They affect families, homeowners, and they affect those who are working toward home ownership as well. I appreciate the board's and staff's time and consideration and respectfully request that you oppose Rules 1111 and 1121 and move to postpone any further action on these rules. Thank you.
Thank you, Clint. Next speaker is Catalina. Catalina, go ahead.
Hello.
Catalina, go ahead. You're muted.
Hello, am I able
Now we
to
can hear you, Catalina. Go ahead, please.
Great. Hi, everyone. I live and work in unincorporated LA County in the San Gabriel Valley. Air here is toxic, and we have the worst NOx and particulate matter pollution in the country. I believe staff has done diligent and balanced work here, and it's time to move forward with the adoption of Rules 111 and 121 in February and begin adopting strong standards for zero-emission space heating and water technologies. Strong rules that can deliver multi-benefits and prevent further premature deaths, asthma attacks, and lost school days are needed immediately. I urge you to reject misleading talking points today, especially from industry about affordability that are being used as a delay tactic and don't offer any solutions. And they won't offer any either, even if you allow more time. Innovative policy and technology solutions exist today that can be deployed. And there are things that can be done to ensure these costs don't get passed to renters and low-income households. It's also worth noting that households in California also have the highest natural gas rates in the country, and this is only projected to increase, delaying compliance from 2027
Thank you for your comments. Supervisor Mitchell, I forgot that you have 3 people in your office who wish to comment. We give them this time now, 1 minute each.
Thank you very much. I didn't get my hand raised quick enough, but here they are.
Okay.
Wait, sorry.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Listen. Oh, okay. There you go.
There we go.
Hello, board members. My name is Julio Rodriguez, and I am currently a student at CSUN. I grew up and currently live in Pacoima. I am here to urge you to pass amendments to Rules 1111 and 1121. These rulings matter to me because I grew up with asthma. My mom, uncle, and cousin currently have asthma. Obviously, I do not want anyone else in my community to have asthma. I am also deeply concerned about climate change. We experienced more than a week straight of 110-degree highs in the San Fernando Valley this year. It's also December, and we have basically had no rain whatsoever. How do any of these factors make it seem as if this is a time for hesitation? I am myself, I'm cost burdened. I grew up cost burdened. Late in 2023, my family and I were harassed out of our home for 10 years because we got a greedy new landlord. I trust the people advocating for these rules, as well as the incentives and programs that will accompany these rules. Please do not waste this opportunity to save lives.
Thank you for your comments. Next.
Hello, I'm Michael Rockmus. I'm a volunteer with LA Climate Reality. We support these rules. The public process for these rules has been going on for more than a year. AQMD staff has taken seriously every concern about affordability and challenging installs. We haven't opposed the previous exceptions for specific challenges. Delay to 2029, however, doesn't address any specific concern and locks in more pollution for the next 25 years. We should use the technology check-ins instead. This is truly a compromised rule, which is why it is particularly disappointing to see business interests drumming up opposition now as if they haven't been participating in the rulemaking process the whole time, and as if their concerns haven't been addressed by staff. The rule is ready, and we ask that there be no further delays. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next.
Hi, good morning.
Morning.
My name is Kim. Hi, my name is Kim, and I'm here to voice my support for the rules. With the technology check-in and paired with the Go Zero program, these make a strong set of rules before you. I have even been in talks with staff to explore future phases of this program to include direct install programs. And quite honestly, folks opposing this rule are not bringing the same energy. Addressing affordability is a critical issue central to the rule's success, but people who oppose are using this issue as a way to delay and water down the benefits of these amended rules. Some of the opponents of the regulation are not raising specific concerns or solutions on affordability. A lot of smart people have been able to be working hard on these rules to address the concerns. SoCal Edison and CCA are also important stakeholders who support these rules. And this is not the first rule. The Bay Area AQMD passed their rules over a year ago on this equipment and are continuing to get feedback from stakeholders. This is truly a compromise set of regulations. We need to pass these rules and continue working collaboratively now and even through the implementation process. I also want to name that I'm kind of concerned with comments we're getting today from some of the opposition with not a real understanding of what these amended rules actually mean, and people who are speaking on communities of color.
Thank you very much for your comments. We'll go back now to the online commenters.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Next speaker is Michael Lewis. Go ahead, Michael, and welcome. Michael, you're muted.
Mike Lewis. I'm with the Construction Industry Air Quality Coalition, and I wanted to make a couple suggestions. One, before you adopt this rule, you need to drag the folks from Edison in and have them show you how they're going to do this. How are they going to get enough transformers in place? When are they going to have them in place? How are they going to get the power from the street to the houses? How are they going to handle tens of thousands of requests every month for new meters and inspections and all the things that go with it? We already know from the fleet transition that we have to do that Edison is telling us 3 to 5 years to get power, and that's to isolated industrial areas. They're going to now have to do this scattered throughout the county and everywhere at the same time. And I think you need to look at the full cost to the homeowners when you talk about affordability. You need to look at the equivalency of the devices, because your staff is playing a little bit of apples and oranges, saying, well, you can put in this cheaper device that operates on 110 and it'll work out just fine. So, you need to add 1146 to your analysis too, because those pool heaters added $70,000 to the cost of a homeowner. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Next speaker is Victoria Hernandez. Welcome, Victoria.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is Victoria Hernandez. I'm the Executive Director of the South Orange County Economic Coalition, and our mission is to promote a strong economic climate by keeping our members informed by key developments such as this. So I want to address Rules 111 and 1121. While we support sustainability, these rules impose significant financial and logistical burdens on families, small businesses, and manufacturers. Families face costs up to $8,200 for water heaters and $21,000 for furnaces, which also raises housing affordability concerns. Small businesses will struggle to absorb the compliance costs, and manufacturers face increased testing, labeling, record-keeping requirements. So while we appreciate this discussion, thank you for the working group too. We encourage extending the timeline to allow for smoother adaptation, expand the rebate program, possibly invest in technology to offset environmental impacts, and inform the community about compliance options to foster market diversity.
Thank you. Next speaker is Vicky McMurtry. Vicky, go ahead, please.
Good morning. My name is Vicky McMurtry, and I'm the president of the Dana Point Chamber of Commerce, representing nearly 500 businesses, including those in the manufacturing, retail, service, and hospitality industries. Thank you for the opportunity to provide comments on 1111 and 1121. I would like to piggyback off the comments made from some of my peers, but specifically colleague Dave Cafaro from the Irvine Chamber. So basically everything he said, our comments echo, but prohibiting the sale and installation of natural gas appliances without viable, affordable alternatives risks creating significant financial burdens. Many businesses already face rising costs, and these proposed rules will exacerbate those challenges. We urge the committee to prioritize affordability and accessibility and ensure that the transition to zero to no emission appliances includes subsidies, incentives, or funding programs to offset costs for businesses and residents. This can include tax credits, grants, or low interest loans to support compliance. We appreciate your efforts to balance environmental goals with the economic vitality of our communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Vicky. Next speaker, Bob Shepard. Bob, go ahead.
Yeah, Bob Shepard is a concerned resident. You're talking about affordability and costs. That's certainly an important element, but you're ignoring the biggest part, and that is residential homes have 125 to 200 amp panels, 220 volt. And in order to get all of these new appliances in, an electric furnace, 113 amps to get the same capacity, 27 amps for an electric water heater. And 1146.2 was put into place and has residential pool heaters in there. That, in fact, those aren't even available in what I need to get the 400,000 BTU. If I did, that's 500 amps. No panel can afford that. I have underground electricity coming into the house. They're not going to be able to increase what I have to get these electric appliances. Leave it alone. Let us decide what we want.
Thank you, Bob. Next speaker is Sasan. Sasan, go ahead, please. Sasan, you're muted.
Sorry. Thank you. Sorry. My name is Hassan Rahimzadeh. I'm president of Aria Cleaners, a small business here in Southern California. I also sit on the board for the California Cleaners Association, representing one of the smallest industries of small businesses in this state. And as we continue to discuss these environmental impacts on future generations, frankly, we feel that these rules will have immediate impacts on on current generations of families. Even though we are a very, very small industry, yet we still represent over 10,000 different families within this state. And these impacts are real. It will put plenty of these small business owners out of business. So we ask you to please consider that in considering the rolling out of these rules immediately. Its immediate impacts are far devastating than long-term. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Next is Amy Valdivia. Amy, go ahead, please. Amy, you're muted.
Just unmuted. Thank you so very much. I am Amy Valdivia, Board Chair for the Upland Chamber of Commerce, and I'm here on their behalf. To make this short, yes, we echo many of the comments prior to. We urge the board to delay the adoption of these rules to allow for an additional workshop. This should focus on reviewing the cost effectiveness versus affordability. Give those exact numbers. We don't have exact numbers. It was suggested that maybe the chamber offer some solutions, subsidies and grants to be used maybe upfront as opposed to waiting for a rebate. That could help with affordability. And if those are available, let's educate. Let's educate the businesses, let's educate the public on how to apply these subsidies and grants. We appreciate your consideration and urge the governing board to prioritize transparency, stakeholder engagement, and allow for informed decision-making in this process. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Next speaker is Julia May. Julia, go ahead, please.
Thank you. Julia May, Communities for a Better Environment, an environmental justice organization which is based in SoCal in Wilmington in Southeast LA. These are communities of color and low-income communities. We support expeditious adoption in February. I think all the board members would agree that zero-emission energy sources are widely available and that transitioning to these sources is your goal. We hope you also agree that we have to consider costs of dirty energy, including costs of asthma, cradle-to-grave costs of fossil fuel use, thousands of deaths per year, and the existential costs of climate change, which are overwhelmingly expensive. And contrary to some deniers, SoCal has the worst, most deadly, and costly air pollution in the nation. However, we absolutely agree with many speakers that the district must consider upfront costs, which can be very tough for many people. But staff has done this where transitions are required when old, dirty energy sources need.
Thank you, Julia. Before I call Jed, I understand the mayor of Laverne's on, Tim Hepburn. Tim, would you go ahead, please? Mayor, from one of my cities I represent in the San Gabriel Valley.
Thank you, Michael. I appreciate that. Tim Hepburn, Mayor of the City of Laverne, and also President of the San Gabriel Valley Council of Governments. I appreciate all the hard work that's been done, and I know that we're truly concerned about our air quality, as I've been a resident in the San Gabriel Valley for over 44 years. But as I represent my community and also the COG, I think that we would want to delay this and have more conversation. As many of the speakers have brought up, there's a lot of questions: electrification, grid capacity, homeowners capacity, and not only to speak of what the cost is to the all residents, including our lower socioeconomic. So I would appreciate a halt on this and let us have more active discussion. And I appreciate that. And I thank you, staff, and I welcome and thank you, board members. And happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and Happy New Year to you all. And I look forward to having more discussion on this at the new year. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Hepburn. Good to hear from you. Jed, go ahead, please.
Thank you very much, committee members. Jed Holtzman from RMI. Unfortunate to see this complex discussion over life and death issues devolve into political theater with 1-minute comments, most of which could not possibly be backed up with data and citations. But the health protective standards contained in these rules will deliver the greatest emissions reductions of any air quality regulation the agency has issued in more than 3 decades. Heat pumps that provide both heating and cooling have already outsold gas furnaces in the U.S. for the last 2 years, with 35% year-over-year growth in the heat pump water heater market last year as well. These technologies are proven. As you likely know by now, gas-burning building equipment in your commercial and residential buildings, like furnaces and water heaters, emits more NOx than oil and gas production, refining, cement manufacturing, and power generation combined, and over 3 times more PM 2.5 than the region's power plants. This is responsible for approximately 76,000 asthma attacks, 30,000 lost school days, and 130 premature deaths each year, with annual health impacts valued at $2 billion, lost to households and the economy.
Thank you. Next speaker is Jim Stewart. Jim?
All right, I'm Jim Stewart, and I'm one of the 50,000 Sierra Club members in the South Coast Air Quality Management District. And we're all supporting the immediate implementation, adoption, and moving forward with these 2 rules. And I really am so pleased about Supervisor Mitchell's speaking for those of us. I happen to live in Long Beach, one of the most polluted areas in the country. And we have, hundreds of thousands of asthma cases, as the previous speaker just talked about. And so I am really upset that these so-called business interests don't have any concern for people who are suffering from all this asthma. And so we need you to do something about it now. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Next speaker is Aaron S. Aaron, go ahead, please.
Hi there. I'm Aaron Steinmetz with the Upland Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors. I would just like to begin by stating the obvious here that it is not the business community's responsibility to come up with affordable ways to mandate electrical appliances. It just isn't. Having said that, if we could hypothetically bring all this down and come up with a solution to make the electrical appliances as affordable, even more affordable than our current gas appliances, how is our electrical grid going to handle the extra load? We already experience brownouts in the summertime. We're encouraged to use less electricity, and this just seems like it would mandate everybody use more electricity. Unless and until our grid can handle it, this just seems like a recipe for disaster. And I yield my time.
Thanks, Aaron. Next speaker is Jane Williams. Go ahead, Jane.
Yes, hi. Thank you for the opportunity to testify. I'm Jane Williams, the Executive Director of California Communities Against Toxics, and we're working on a multi-pronged approach to develop low-cost financing, especially for early adopters for critical government services like fire stations, police stations, hospitals, and government buildings. So, and we feel like we are taking this initiative instead of people who are going to be impacted by the costs and the benefits both, due to the fact that there doesn't seem to be a great plan. Although I do see that we're asking for the board to put aside $100 million. We're looking. I think that this rule will require more money than that. But I just think that the advocacy community is behind looking at Cal Ed, looking at the treasurer, looking at ways to fund this, and so that we can mute those impacts on low-income communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. Next speaker is George Botris. George, go ahead, please.
Good morning, committee members. My name is George Boutros, and I am here today on behalf of Orange County Business Council. I'm speaking today to express our strong opposition to proposed amended rules 1111 and 1121, and we respectfully request that South Coast Air Quality Management District reconsider these costly, burdensome, and consequential proposed amendments. Considering the data and information that is currently available, we have serious concerns regarding the overall impact of these rules and what those impacts would be for various economic sectors. If these rules are adopted in their current form, it could have a negative impact on the housing market. Housing is already a major point of contention for Orange County's resident workforce. These rules would also have a significant impact on the hospitality industry, which is one of Orange County's most vibrant and diverse economic sectors. Again, Orange County Business Council is strongly opposed to these rules for a variety of reasons and encourages you to reconsider in the interest of the region's economic well-being. Thank you for your time and consideration on this matter.
Thanks, George. Next speaker is Vicky Kirschenbaum. Vicky, go ahead, please.
Hi, my name is Vicki Kirschenbaum. I'm the chair of the Sustainable Burbank Commission, but I am speaking only on my own behalf today. I am asking that the board move forward with the proposed amended rules 1111 and 1121 at the February meeting. You have already studied this for 14 months. We urgently need strong rules to advance zero-emission appliances, cut pollution in the region, and reduce NOx emissions. Recent studies determine gas-burning equipment in residential and commercial buildings in the South Coast Air Basin is responsible for annual health impacts of $2 billion. For the health and safety of our communities, I urge you to pass the proposed amended rules 1111 and 1121 without further delay. Thank you.
Thank you, Vicki. Next speaker is Elisa Diaz. Elisa, go ahead, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Alyssa Diaz, Senior Policy Manager, speaking on behalf of the Los Angeles Area Chamber of Commerce, representing a broad spectrum of businesses, large and small, in the LA region. While the Chamber supports efforts to reduce emissions and improve air quality, we have concerns about the economic and practical impacts on businesses, consumers, and the regional economy. The Chamber supports proposed and additional alternative compliance measures to address cost, energy availability, permitting delays, and other issues. We recommend the district consider a more gradual phase-in period to allow for market readiness, grid improvements, and the development of more diverse zero-emission technologies that could provide consumers greater choice. In line with the November 1st governing board directions, the district also needs to do extensive public outreach to make Southern Californians aware of these rules. It's also vital that compliance dates are aligned with those contained in 2022 AQMP of January 1st, 2029. We do appreciate this alignment was included in the revisions presented today. A balanced approach that takes into account both environmental goals and economic realities will be essential for ensuring long-term success of these policies. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Next speaker is Al Sattler. Al, go ahead, please.
Okay, good morning. Al Sattler. We live next to San Pedro in what's probably the hottest square mile in the South Bay area since we're blocked from the sea breezes. More people will be installing air conditioning as we get more heat waves, and all these systems should be mandated to be joint heating and air conditioning heat pump systems. There is no reason for further delay on this. We installed whole house air conditioning a number of years ago, and the HVAC contractor recommended using a gas heater rather than installing a simple flat valve to change the heat pump from the air conditioning to a heater. And nowadays there are simple systems available that would make such installations economical. Manufacturers need certainty in order to ramp up manufacturing of these systems. Please pass 11 and 1126 ASAP.
Thanks, Al. Next speaker is the Redlands Chamber. Go ahead, please.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, I'm Evan Sanford, Executive Director of the Redlands Chamber of Commerce, and of course we support efforts to improve air quality, but these amendments raise significant concerns that need immediate attention. The Chamber became aware of these proposed changes 2 days ago. This highlights a critical gap in outreach to stakeholders, including those of us in the Inland Empire. As was mentioned before, it's not our job as a nonprofit membership to do the job of professional staff at the district. That being said, we would love to meet with anyone and help develop realistic and reasonable solutions. It is our job to raise awareness of these changes since we believe in educating the public when that happens. Next, the current infrastructure in our community is not equipped to handle a widespread shift to electric appliances, especially here in Redlands. We've got commercial buildings and houses going back to the 1890s that lack the necessary electrical capacity. Thank you for the time to share our concerns, and we look forward to some more time.
Thank you very much. I want to remind people that I did cut off the queue after the presentation, and the last speaker will be
Jackie Romero, Larry. Yes.
Not this guy?
No.
Jackie Romero from the California Restaurant Association. So sorry we can't accommodate any more signups. So if you're not on the list after Jackie, too bad. Sorry.
Thank you. Sam, go ahead, please.
Thank you for your time. My name is Sam Fishman. I'm with Spur, a public policy think tank in the Bay Area. I'm here to express my strong support for passing these rules without delay. Spur works on electrification policy in California and cost drivers like panel upgrades. The news on panel upgrades is incredibly positive. Research shows that with watt diet strategies such as power efficient equipment and breaker optimization, the vast majority of homes and apartments in California can fully electrify without upgrading their electrical panels. These strategies have rapidly matured in no small part due to the regulatory momentum on zero-emission appliance rules and the signal that sends to electrification innovators. So when these rules hopefully pass in due time, everyone's going to get working on this full time, from electrification experts to manufacturers to installers. The sooner these rules pass and set a market signal, the sooner heat pump retrofits will become more affordable. So I urge you to support these rules without delay.
Thank you, Sam. Next speaker is Janae Sylvester. Go ahead, please.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, on behalf of more than 300 members of the Brea Chamber of Commerce, I'm encouraging the South Coast Air Quality Management District Board to vote no on the proposed amended rules. These amendments will have significant negative impacts on local businesses, consumers, and the broader economy. And they function as a de facto ban on gas appliances, which eliminate the option of using these in essential applications. They will disproportionately impact small businesses and homeowners who rely on natural gas. And local businesses would be faced with imposed regulations and additional burdens. Secondly, the economic consequences for consumers would be severe. We as the chamber collected several comments from our members, including a member named Nancy, said she can not go electric in any circumstance because her area faces electric outages.
Thank you. Next speaker is Richard.
Hi.
Hi, Richard. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Richard Wren, and I'm a project coordinator with New World International. I'm speaking on behalf of Ben Zhang, the lead project manager. Our company fully supports the efforts made to improve air quality and reduce emissions, but we're concerned that these two propositions would have significant impact on and hinder the progress of many development projects. Many new and existing projects rely on natural gas for critical infrastructure, and these proposed amendments would present very real, practical, and financial challenges. We're open to exploring alternatives or phased solutions that would balance both the SC-AQMD's environmental goals while also keeping in mind the operational realities of the existing framework. It's our hope the SC-AQMD considers other approaches that allow for gradual transitions which won't disrupt ongoing development. I yield my time. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Next speaker is David Martinez. David, go ahead, please.
Good afternoon, committee. My name is David Martinez, and I'm with Climate Action Campaign, and I'm from Orange County. In Orange County and the region at large, disadvantaged communities are continually impacted by dirty air. However, there is a clear solution: zero emission appliances like heat pumps. These rules have already been worked on for over a year and would dramatically reduce emissions. Better air quality and better health can be achieved by this board. Please don't delay passage of these rules and adopt them at the beginning of next year. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Our last two speakers now. And next speaker is Kaida Kayuchi. Kaida, go ahead, please.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Good morning. Hope you all are doing well. First of all, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak up about the situation. I'm an 11th grade student living in San Gabriel Valley, and I'm here on behalf of Shared Streets to advocate for cleaner air. So our community is seriously at risk from air pollution, especially the most vulnerable people, the young children and the elderly. And the gas furnace, it's a old invention. It's over 100 years old. It's about time we do something about it, switch over to things like electric heat pumps, which is why I am in strong support of regulations 1111 and 1121 and in strong support of passing them as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Our final public speaker is Jackie Romero. Jackie, go ahead, please. You got 1 minute.
Good morning. My name is Jackie Romero with the California Restaurant Association, speaking on behalf of the restaurant community to express our concerns regarding these rules. The scale of mechanical, electrical, and public plumbing necessary to comply with the proposed amended rules comes with an astronomical upfront cost to thousands of residents in the region. Small business owners will be facing the impacts of proposed amended rules 1111 and 1121, along with the recently voted on 1146.2. These costs will be beyond impactful, not just for our operators, but every resident in the air district. We urge you to delay consideration and adoption of these rules to allow time for a more robust public outreach process that ensures residents are properly informed and that questions regarding cost, technology, and the availability of potential incentives are able to be fully addressed. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. That's all the public comment we have on this item. I'll bring it back to the committee for discussion. First of all, I'd like to thank the staff for all the hard work you've done on this rule and on the public outreach. It's obvious that public outreach has reached a lot because of the public comment we've received. However, there's a lot more to be done. And as I mentioned earlier, I am very concerned about the costs for each of these rules for the homeowners. I'm also concerned about the cost effectiveness of this rule. And that goes partly to my question. The AQMP says that the residential water heaters would have a NOx reduction of 1.25 tons, and residential space heaters a reduction of 1.17 tons. And I've heard the staff say things like 7 tons, 10 tons. I'd like to know what is the right answer. The AQMP has those in it, and why, if it's different, why?
Yes, thank you for the question. Just a couple of things to keep in mind. So first off, the AQMP's target date on 2037 is a little bit different than what our end point is for the rule, right? So when we look at the rule, we're looking at achieving, when we talk about the 10 tons per year or tons per day reduction, we're talking about the full implementation of the rule, which is going to be reaching out to more like at this point, closer to like a 2050 timeframe. So when you sort of back calculate and look at what could be achieved at that point in the year 2037, we'd be trending on that target right now.
Well, I really don't understand why the AQMP would not have the end date, but
But the AQMP, if I may, it's targeted to what the attainment date is, which is 2037, but this rule would fully implement beyond. The other thing to keep in mind is the AQMP, we estimate how much emission reductions we think we're going to get from those control measures. We don't necessarily know what that's going to look like until we go through rule development. I believe, and staff can correct me, but in the AQMP, we did not necessarily presume that everything went to zero. For this category, I think we said something like 70%, so it was a little bit of a different estimate than what we're looking at now.
Okay, thank you. The other, well, based on that, I've been looking at cost effectiveness numbers, and even with 10 tons of NOx reduction, I believe you're looking at somewhere north of $2.5 million per ton as the cost effectiveness number for this. And I heard what Heather said, but I don't believe that. So I think you really need to look closely at cost effectiveness, because it's, in my view, very expensive per ton. More expensive than any other rule that I've seen.
Thank you. We will look back into those cost-effective numbers, and we're looking at updating our numbers to more recent year data.
Okay, appreciate that. Staff, you requested that we delay this. What time are you asking for?
So we're looking to come back and to the committee in February, and a 60-day delay for the board.
So come back for an April meeting. Okay, just to clarify that, I would ask the committee to go ahead and approve recommending to the board that we delay this based on staff's request 60 days.
Mr. Chair. I just want to, first of all, thank everyone that took their time to come out and testify. It was nice to actually hear both sides on this rulemaking, because it does address everyone. I'll move the motion to continue this item for 60 days till February.
If I may, Chair.
Yes.
Supervisor Mitchell has her hand raised.
Yeah, I saw that.
Okay.
Is there a second on that motion?
I'll second.
I'll second it for now.
Okay, thank you. Supervisor Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just an inquiry with the 60-day delay. Could anyone clarify for me what actual work will be done to talk about options around addressing the issues of affordability? Because I'm not sure what a 60-day delay will be. I'm trying to decide what my vote will be on this motion. if if someone could just paint the picture for me, well, what kind of work will be done to even begin to answer the question raised by so many who came forward today?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. Thank you for that. So with that additional time, we want to take that time to really drill down on the numbers and make sure we have very good data. Again, very concerned about affordability, thinking through different policy options that we could craft to address that. The other thing we're going to do is a lot more outreach. So we are scheduled to have a number of presentations in January with different groups, still continuing to schedule more and more of those. We recognize the critical need to get the word out, and so we'll be focusing on those elements.
I appreciate that, Mr. Chair. Just for transparency, I'm going to abstain from the committee vote, but we'll be following very closely and would like to be engaged in any way appropriate in the ongoing conversation about affordability. Since that seems to be the crux of the issue, I don't want to get to a point in 60 days where we're looking at further delays, but I'll be abstaining from the committee vote today. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor. Other comments from committee members? If not, could you call the roll on the motion?
Councilmember Caccioti?
Yes.
Senator Delgado? Absent. Supervisor Mitchell?
Abstain.
Supervisor Hagman?
Hagman, aye.
Sorry. Board Member Padilla-Campos?
I'll abstain as well.
And Chair McCollum?
Yes. Yes.
Motion carries over.
Thank you very much. We'll go on now to our rest of our agenda. We have written reports. Is there any need to address any of those reports or have any presentations or pull them off the calendar? Seeing none, we'll go on to other matters. Any other business that we need to talk about? Now we come to our public comment period for items not on the agenda. If you wish to make a public comment, raise your hand. Go ahead, Harvey.
Harvey, you're muted. Unmute, please.
Am I being heard?
Yes, you are, Harvey.
I'm sorry, I'm in a public. There might be some background noise.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair. Go clarify that this is also for 1 minute.
Yes, 1 minute, please.
Thank you.
We're way over time.
God damn it. Okay, look, if you
we can
get out of the kitchen.
Thank you, Harvey. Next, we'll go on to Justin Walters.
Good morning. My name is Justin Walters. I'm representing Local 78, and I'm calling today to speak about the impacts that come from the amendments rule 1111 and rule 1121.
I'm sorry, this is public comment on items not on the agenda. Next, we have Pastor Zach. Go ahead, Pastor.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Perfect. So I want to just speak generally, and it does deal with the last agenda item, but it also has to do generally with what we choose to hear and not hear. I think the rule of thumb here is common sense. You know, speaking in terms of environmental impact, we could make changes all day long to what appliances people have in their home, but let's talk about vehicles. Let's talk about the elephant in the room. And a lot of speakers addressed that in the last agenda item. But generally speaking, as it pertains to the South Coast air quality and general air quality throughout Southern California and really throughout our nation, we need to be talking about vehicles. We need to be making a priority about what emission control we can put on vehicles. And we don't need to talk about anything else until that gets done. I mean, that's the problem all over the board when we talk about our industrial development, when we talk about society, when we talk about the things that we're the most concerned about, ecological changes, we're actually talking.
Thank you for your comments. Next, Al Sattler.
Good morning. I heard Chris Murray on the previous item saying that mobile source air pollution needs to be controlled, and she is working on this. I quite agree that controlling mobile source air pollution is very important, and that it's been to a great extent blockaded by stuff at the by inaction at the federal level. Apparently, there may well be some things coming down from the federal government still that will help with this. I would urge Chris to work with federal representatives to make sure that we can have better control on mobile sources here, and planes, trains, automobiles. And please, Chris, speak to your representatives in favor of controlled mobile sources. Thank you.
Thank you, Al. Next, Amy Smith, our last public commenter.
Hi, good morning. My name is Amy Smith, and I'm calling on behalf of Creed Los Angeles. We're quite opposed to the impacts and that are going to be on our Southern California residents and the financial burdens that the consumers are going to be facing on already limited budgets. You guys need to be.
Please address items not on the agenda. It sounds like you're addressing Rule 1111 and 1121.
Okay. Yeah, I am addressing those. Yes.
Well, it's this period is for comments on items not on the agenda.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, that's all the public commenters we have. So we'll go on to our next meeting date, which is January 24th at 10:30. And this meeting is adjourned. Everyone have a Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, and a wonderful New Year.
Merry Christmas. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.